It was at this exact moment I knew I wasn't alone out here in these woods. Something had been stalking me, toying with me, but at this point I was long past the point of no return. I was cornered with nowhere to go. I knew it, but more importantly, my hunter knew it. I want to start by telling you something about myself, because context matters here. I am not a crazy person. I know that's exactly what a crazy person would say. But hear me out. My name is Craig Daniels. I'm 38 years old. I work as an information technology contractor Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, diagnosing server failures and explaining to executives why their password needs more than 6 characters. I own a modest house in Tacoma, Washington. I pay my taxes. I coach youth baseball on weekends in the spring. I am, by any reasonable standard, a completely ordinary man. Except for one thing. On my days off, I drive into the wilderness with 40 pounds of camera equipment and I look for things that aren't supposed to exist. My YouTube channel, Dark Horror Narrations, has been running for 12 years. 87,000 subscribers as of this recording. Not massive, not viral, but steady. Built one video at a time, one investigation at a time, by a guy who genuinely believed that if he looked long enough and hard enough, he would eventually find something real. Something that couldn't be explained away. Something that would make every weekend trip, every sleepless night in a tent, every raised eyebrow from his coworkers worth it. In 12 years, I never found it. Hoaxes, misidentifications, natural phenomena dressed up in dramatic lighting and wishful thinking. A guy in a gorilla suit outside of Bend, Oregon, a black bear standing upright in the Cascades that looked, I'll admit, genuinely unsettling at 4 in the morning. Elk bugling in the dark, which sounds, if you've never heard it before, like something dragged out of a nightmare. I documented all of it, analyzed all of it, and debunked almost all of it, including my own footage, because credibility matters to me more than views. I told myself the right evidence was out there. I just hadn't found it yet. September 22nd, 2023. That's when I stopped looking, because something found me first. The Gifford Pinchot National Forest covers nearly 1.4 million acres of southern Washington state. It's old-growth country, Douglas fir and western red cedar, so tall they block the sun at midday. Creek drainages that don't appear on modern maps. Ridge lines that haven't seen a human being in years, maybe decades. It is vast in a way that a person raised in cities genuinely cannot comprehend until they're standing inside it, and the scale of it presses down on you like a physical weight. The Dark Divide is a specific region within Gifford Pinchot, remote even by the forest standards. Rough terrain, limited Forest Service road access, and for the past 18 months a sustained spike in unusual reported activity that had caught my attention and refused to let go. Wood knocks echoing across ridgelines at odd hours. Vocalizations that wildlife biologists called inconclusive. Footprints massive, humanoid, deeply impressed into soft soil, showing up along creek drainages far from any maintained trail. 2 separate trail runners reporting the sensation of being paced through the forest. Something keeping stride with them just beyond the tree line, invisible but relentlessly present. That last detail, that's what did it for me. Pacing behavior. Sustained, deliberate pacing. That's not a bear. Bears don't do that. That's predator behavior. Patient predator behavior. The kind of behavior you see in animals that hunt by studying their prey first, by learning patterns and weaknesses before committing to a move. I requested the full trail report from the Forest Service under a public records request. I cross-referenced all 17 incident filings from the past year and a half. I plotted the locations on a topographic map and found a geographic cluster, a roughly 2-mile radius in the Dark Divide's eastern drainage, where the majority of anomalous reports originated. 3 months of planning, gear checks, resupply runs, route planning. I drove up Forest Service Road 25 on a Tuesday morning with a truck bed full of equipment and 12 years of patience finally running out. The trailhead appeared around 11:40 a.m. Weathered Forest Service sign. Rusted iron fire ring, a parking area of crushed gravel barely wide enough for 2 vehicles, and mine was the only one. I killed the engine and sat for a moment in the abrupt silence, listening to the tick of the cooling motor and the distant sound of moving water somewhere below the ridge. The air when I stepped out was cold and clean, 54 degrees. Recent rain had left the ground soft, good tracking conditions. The sky was a pale gray ceiling of cloud, the kind that diffuses light evenly without producing shadows. Also good. Harsh shadows make trail camera footage difficult to analyze. I spent 30 minutes unloading and organizing before I started down the trail. The pack weighed 43 pounds. I'd weighed it on my bathroom scale that morning. 6 Sony mirrorless cameras with passive infrared triggers, a FLIR thermal imaging scope, a parabolic directional microphone, and 2 backup audio recorders, batteries, external hard drives, tent, sleeping bag, cooking kit, 3 days of food, water filtration, bear spray on my right hip, my Glock 19 on my left. The gun was loaded with standard hollow points, not because I expected to shoot anything supernatural. 12 years of research had given me no reason to believe standard ammunition would stop anything genuinely cryptid, but because these woods had human beings in them. And human beings, in my experience, are statistically far more dangerous than anything I'd ever been looking for. I locked the truck, pocketed the keys, and started into the forest. The first mile was straightforward. Wide trail, well maintained, the kind of path that sees enough summer traffic to stay clear. The second mile narrowed. Roots crossed the trail at ankle height, deceptively smooth under a coating of wet moss. Ferns crowded in from both sides. The canopy grew denser, and the light, already diffused, dropped another few shades toward gray. I noticed things as I walked, small things, each one individually unremarkable. A branch broken cleanly at chest height across the trail. Fresh break, the exposed wood was pale and damp, not yet weathered or darkened. Could have been a falling limb. Could have been a large animal moving through. Deep impressions in the soft mud at a creek crossing. Indistinct. Probably deer, but large. A smell. Faint. Musky and wrong in a way I couldn't immediately articulate. Not skunk. Not bear. Something else. Something I didn't have a reference for. I noted it on my recorder and kept moving. I found my campsite around 1:30 p.m. A natural clearing a few hundred yards off the main trail, sheltered from wind on 3 sides by old hemlock stands, close enough to a small creek for water access, but elevated enough to avoid flooding if the rain returned. I had it scouted from satellite imagery months ago. It was exactly what I needed. The tent went up fast. I've set that tent up in the dark, in the rain, in wind that nearly took it out of my hands. It takes 7 minutes when I'm being careful, and 4 minutes when I'm not. I was being careful. Then I unpacked the cameras. My deployment system has been refined over a decade of field work. I place cameras in a grid pattern around camp, a perimeter, essentially each one angled to cover a specific approach vector and overlapping slightly with its neighbors to eliminate blind spots. 6 cameras give me full 360 coverage with redundancy. Each one goes up at 8 feet, high enough to capture full body height on a large subject, low enough to get facial detail if a subject approaches closely. They're camouflaged with bark-textured wrap tape. Unless you knew exactly where to look, you wouldn't see them. By 4 p.m., all 6 cameras were deployed, tested, and recording. I made camp coffee on my backpacking stove and sat on a fallen log with my thermal scope in my lap, scanning the tree line. Nothing, just forest. The creek chattered somewhere below me. A varied thrush called once from high in the canopy and then went quiet. Peaceful. Genuinely peaceful. I should have paid more attention to when that peace stopped. The wood knock experiment was something I'd done dozens of times. You find a solid branch, you rap it 3 times against the tree trunk, hard enough to carry, then you wait. The theory popular in the Bigfoot research community, controversial outside of it, is that large hominids use deliberate percussive sounds for long-distance communication. Whether that's true or whether it's the kind of collective mythology that builds up in passionate research communities, I'd never been able to confirm either way. I knocked at 6:53 p.m. 3 times. Even spacing. The sound rolled through the trees and died. I waited. A minute passed. 2. A raven called from somewhere in the middle distance. Wind moved through the upper canopy in a long, slow exhalation. I was about to put the branch down. Then it came back. 3 knocks. Same spacing, same timber. From the northeast, I estimated maybe 180 yards out, far enough to be ambiguous, close enough to be undeniable. My pulse jumped. I grabbed my audio recorder. 6:56 p.m. Received apparent response to wood knock sequence. Northeast quadrant. Estimated 180 yards. Responding now. I knocked again. Exact same pattern. The response came back in under 10 seconds. Closer. 120 yards, maybe less. And there it was. The thing that made my skin prickle. In a way no wood knock had ever made it prickle before. The response wasn't just similar to mine. It was identical. Not approximately the same rhythm. Not close. Identical. The same interval between strikes, the same relative force, the same slight trailing resonance as the sound died in the trees. Like a recording. Like something playing back what it had just heard, rather than generating a response independently. I changed the pattern. 2 knocks. Then after a pause, 1 more. Silence. I waited 3 minutes. Nothing came back. Whatever was out there had stopped when I changed the sequence. It could mimic, but apparently it couldn't adapt in real time. Or, and this thought arrived quietly and settled in my stomach like cold water, it didn't want me to know it could adapt. It was choosing what to reveal. That distinction felt important. I didn't know why yet. I ate dinner in my tent as the light failed. Freeze-dried rice and chicken that tasted mostly of sodium but provided actual calories, which was what mattered. I reviewed my audio recording from the wood knock exchange 3 times, taking notes. The mimicry was too precise to be natural. No known animal in this region produces percussive sounds with that degree of deliberate structure. I pulled up my camera feeds on my laptop. 5 of the 6 showed nothing. Unusual trees, shadows, the occasional flutter of a bird passing through frame. Camera 4, positioned on the western approach, had triggered twice. The first trigger was a doe moving through at a brisk walk. The second trigger, time-stamped at 6:41 p.m., showed something I couldn't immediately classify. Movement in the deep background, maybe 60 yards out. Upright, bipedal, partially obscured by trees. Visible for maybe a second and a half of footage before it passed behind a massive hemlock trunk and didn't reappear on the other side. I scrubbed back and forth through those 90 frames at least 20 times. It was tall, whatever it was. The surrounding trees gave me reference points, and against those reference points, the subject was big, 7 feet, possibly more, with a build that read as massive even at that distance. The movement was fluid, in a way that didn't look like a man in a suit, no costume, produces that quality of natural weight shift in the hips. And the color was wrong for any human walker. Dark, very dark, almost black against the gray-brown of the tree trunks. My hands were not entirely steady when I saved the clip. I set perimeter alarms before I went to sleep. Fishing lines strung at ankle height between stakes around the tent, with small aluminum carabiners attached at intervals primitive but effective. If anything walked through my perimeter in the dark, I'd hear the line snap and the carabiners clatter. I fell asleep around 10 p.m. Something woke me at 2:41 a.m. Not the perimeter alarms. Those were silent. What woke me was sound-specific, impossible sound coming from directly outside my tent wall. My own voice. 6:56 p.m. Received apparent response to wood knock sequence. Northeast quadrant. Estimated 180 yards. My recording. Playing back at me from outside the tent. Clearly, crisply. No distortion, no static. Like it was coming from my own recorder held right against the fabric. I did not move. I lay in my sleeping bag with my hand wrapped around the grip of my Glock, and I did not move or breathe loudly for a very long time. Responding now. The playback stopped. Then footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Moving along the outside of my tent, close enough that I could hear the compression of pine needles underfoot. moving left to right, slow, unhurried. They circled to the far side of the tent, stopped, silence so complete I could hear my own pulse. Then something leaned against the tent from the outside. Not violently, not aggressively, just weight, applied slowly. The tent fabric pressed inward a few inches against my leg through the sleeping bag. Whatever was outside was leaning on the tent wall, the way a person leans on a fence post, casually, like it had all the time in the world. I didn't breathe. After what felt like minutes but was probably 30 seconds, the weight lifted, the fabric relaxed. The footsteps resumed, moving away now, growing quieter, dissolving into the ordinary sounds of the forest, until I couldn't distinguish them anymore. I lay perfectly still for another hour. At 4 a.m., I unzipped the tent and swept the perimeter with my thermal scope. Nothing. No heat signatures. No movement. The perimeter alarms were intact, every line unbroken. Whatever had been there had walked through my camp without tripping a single alarm. I checked my audio recorder. It was in my jacket pocket where I'd left it. No one had taken it. But when I reviewed the camera footage from cameras 5 and 6, the two closest to where I had heard the footsteps, the files were corrupted. Digital noise. Unusable. Only those two cameras. The ones that would have captured whatever was outside my tent. Not random equipment failure. Selective. Surgical. It knew where my cameras were. Dawn came cold and gray. I hadn't slept again, and I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. I made coffee and ate a protein bar, and sat on my log and tried to think clearly. My options were simple. Leave now, get back to my truck, go home. Or stay, recalibrate, try to understand what I was dealing with. 12 years. I stayed. The first thing I found that morning was my equipment bag. It was sitting outside my tent, 20 feet from where I'd left it inside the tent the night before, unzipped. I checked the contents methodically. Everything was there, every battery, every drive, every spare SD card. But the organization was wrong. I am meticulous about how I pack that bag. Batteries on the left side, grouped by device. Hard drives in the padded center sleeve, largest first. SD cards in the front mesh pocket, organized by camera number. Everything had been removed and replaced. The batteries were on the right, the hard drives were loose in the main compartment. The SD cards were shuffled randomly. Not stolen, not damaged, just examined. And returned in a way that made it absolutely clear that it had been examined. I stood there for a long moment looking at the bag. Then I looked at the ground around it. Footprints, leading away from the bag toward the south, toward the deeper forest. Large humanoid prints in the soft earth, and beside them, occasionally overlapping them, my boot prints, my tread pattern, my size, my weight distribution. The slight supination on the right foot I'd had since a sprained ankle in 2015. Exact copies of my prints walking alongside the creature's own tracks. Like it was showing me something, like it wanted me to see. The prints led 20 yards into the trees and then stopped at the base of a large fir, both sets, as if two people had walked to this tree and simply ceased to exist. I looked up. 3 parallel gouges in the bark, about 7 feet off the ground. Deep cuts, fresh. The sap was still running, bright and amber, in the gray morning light. I went back to camp and replaced the corrupted SD cards in cameras 5 and 6, checked all 6 feeds on my laptop. The 4 working cameras had captured nothing significant overnight beyond some deer movement around 2 a.m. Then I did something I've never done on an investigation before. I sat down in the center of my camp, in plain sight of the tree line, and I spoke out loud. I know you're out there. I'm not here to hurt anything. I just want to understand. My voice sounded small and thin in that big forest. No response. Of course, no response. But I had a feeling, no, stronger than a feeling, more like a certainty that something was listening. Around 10 a.m., things got worse. Camera 4 triggered. I had my laptop open and the live feed up, so I saw it in close to real time. The western approach, 90 feet out, moving through the trees at the edge of frame. A figure, bipedal, moving fast, too fast, the fluid, ground-eating speed of something that belonged in these woods in a way I never would. It crossed the frame in 4 seconds and was gone. But here's what stopped my heart. It was carrying something. My parabolic microphone. The big one, the professional grade unit I use for long distance audio capture. It had been packed in my equipment bag that was inside my tent when I went to sleep. I spun around and checked the tent. The bag was there, inside, zipped. I unzipped it. The microphone was gone. I felt the blood drain from my face. It had gone into my tent while I slept, while I was lying 6 feet away with my hand on my gun. It had unzipped my bag, removed a specific piece of equipment, re-zipped the bag, and walked out. And I had heard nothing. I checked my perimeter alarms. Still intact. Every line, every carabiner. The thing hadn't tripped them because it knew exactly where they were, and had stepped over them, between them, around them with a precision that made my carefully constructed security feel like something a child had built. I was being shown something very specific. You cannot protect yourself from me. I can reach you whenever I want. I have been reaching you this entire time. At noon, I found the trail. I wasn't looking for it specifically. I was breaking down my cooking station, seriously reconsidering my decision to stay, when I noticed something south of camp that I hadn't seen before. A depression in the pine needles. A suggestion of a path, not maintained, not obvious, but there line through the understory where the ground cover was subtly compressed, where the lower branches of the hemlocks had been pushed aside and stayed pushed. And at the edge of that path, sitting in plain sight, was my parabolic microphone. I stood at the edge of camp and looked at it. I want you to understand what happened next, because this is the part I have gone over in my mind 1,000 times since. I am an intelligent man. I have investigated enough hoaxes to recognize manipulation. I had all the information I needed to understand that what I was looking at was deliberate placement, a lure, an invitation. I understood all of that, and I followed the trail anyway, because the microphone was 20 feet in, and then my backup battery pack was another 40 feet beyond that place where I could just barely see it from the last piece of equipment, and then an SD card, and then a camera lens, a trail of my own equipment laid out like stepping stones, each piece visible only when you'd already picked up the last. One piece at a time, 40 feet at a time. Each step taken with the absolute certainty that the next piece was just ahead. I followed it for 20 minutes, through the forest, away from camp, away from the main trail, south and then west and then south again, deeper and deeper into terrain that was getting rougher, the canopy thicker, the light grayer and weaker. Downhill, always downhill. The air changed. That smell again, stronger now, musky, dense, animal, but wrong. Like something that ate what animals ate, and moved how animals moved, but was not in any fundamental sense an animal. I should have turned around. I didn't turn around. The ravine opened up suddenly. One moment I was pushing through a dense hemlock stand. The next I stepped out onto the edge of a natural bowl roughly 40 feet across, steep walls on 3 sides. The far wall, a sheer face of mossy basalt, maybe 30 feet high. A creek drainage in a dry season, rain-carved and ancient. My equipment was everywhere. All of it. Everything that had gone missing, and things I didn't know were missing yet. My cameras, my hard drives, my tent stakes. Even things that had been in my locked truck, my backup equipment bag, my secondary battery case, a road case full of spare parts I'd left in the cab. Arranged, not scattered. Arranged in a rough semicircle at the center of the bowl, like exhibits in a museum, like a display. I stood at the edge and stared at it and felt the understanding arrive in pieces, each one colder than the last. The trail of equipment, the careful placement, the 20-minute walk from camp into terrain with limited exits and steep walls. This wasn't a find, this was a presentation. And I wasn't the one making it. It was at this exact moment. I knew I wasn't alone out here in these woods. Something had been stalking me, toying with me, but at this point I was long past the point of no return. I was cornered with nowhere to go. I knew it, but more importantly, IT knew it. The sound started from the ridgeline above, not footsteps, weight shifts. Something adjusting its position the way a predator adjusts when its prey has stopped moving and it no longer needs to stay still. From the right side of the ravine, from behind me, from the left. 3 points, at minimum, maybe more. The acoustics of the bowl made it hard to locate precisely. I turned slowly, scanning, thermal scope up, sweeping the ridgelines. There, a heat signature on the southern lip, crouched behind a fallen log, gone the instant I pointed the scope at it. There, movement in the trees, to my left, too large and too fast to be deer, there and then not there. And behind me I spun something dropping below the ridgeline, just the suggestion of a massive silhouette before it vanished. They weren't attacking, not yet. They were closing the exits. My throat was dry. My hands were steady, because my hands are always steady when I'm genuinely afraid, some backwards physiological quirk I've had since childhood. But my chest felt like it had a stone sitting on it. Think. You have to think. The ravine walls were too steep to climb quickly. The way I'd come was already blocked. I could feel the presence behind me like a physical pressure, something between a sound and a vibration that my body registered before my brain caught up. The far wall was sheer basalt, nothing there. That left one option. The narrow drainage channel at the northeast corner of the bowl, where centuries of water flow had cut a deeper groove in the rock before the creek went underground. Tight, rough, but passable, maybe, if a person was motivated enough. I was extraordinarily motivated. I moved toward it without giving myself time to think about it more, because thinking would have stopped me. The sounds from the ridgelines intensified. Something was coming down. I reached the drainage channel and pushed into it sideways. It was narrow, maybe 2 feet wide at the opening, tighter as it went. Rock walls on both sides, pressing against my chest and back. My pack hung up immediately. I unslung it, grabbed it by one strap, dragged it behind me. Behind me, in the bowl, I heard impact. Something heavy landing on the floor of the ravine from above. One thing, then a second. They jumped down. They were in the bowl with me. I pushed harder through the channel. The rocks scraped against my jacket, my hands, my face, where I turned to fit 15 feet in, 20. The rock pressed from every side, and the light was a thin gray line above me, and I was fighting the beginnings of genuine claustrophobic panic when the channel opened up. Not much, just enough. A slight widening that let me turn forward again, get my feet under me, move faster. I was 20 feet from the exit when the light at the end of the channel shifted. Something was blocking it. Not rock. Something standing in the opening, filling it. A silhouette against the gray daylight that was too tall and too wide and shaped wrong in ways my brain couldn't immediately process. It had gone around. It was faster in these woods than I would ever be. I stopped. For a moment, nothing moved. Me in the channel, it at the exit, 10 feet of compressed rock between us, the sound of my own breathing filling the stone space. Then it stepped aside, opened the exit, let me through. I didn't stop to wonder why. I came out of that channel at a dead run, hit open forest, and ran. The forest floor was rough, and I ran it anyway. Roots, rocks, sudden drops in grade that I hit without warning and absorbed through my knees. Branches at face height that I ducked or took across my forearms without slowing down. The pack was still in my hand, and I let it go somewhere in the first 30 seconds because 40 pounds was going to kill me faster than whatever was behind me. My truck was north. 2 miles, maybe 2.5. Uphill for the first mile, then the trail flattened toward the trailhead. I knew the way. I'd walked it that morning. I ran. And for maybe 3 minutes, I thought I was going to make it. The forest around me stayed loud with my own crashing progress, and I couldn't hear anything else clearly, and I told myself that was fine, that was okay, that the silence meant I was alone, that it had let me go, that whatever game this was, it was over. Then I heard breathing to my left. Not mine. Mine was ragged, effortful, the breathing of a 38-year-old man running uphill through rough terrain at a pace his body was loudly protesting. This was different, even rhythmic, the easy breathing of something that was not working hard at all, keeping pace with me. Effortlessly, I cut right, hard, changed direction without slowing, broke through a patch of sword fern that whipped against my legs. The breathing moved with me. I cut left. Same result. I pushed harder, dug in, burned reserves I didn't have. My lungs were on fire and my left knee was screaming, and I was running on nothing but the most fundamental biological imperative that exists. The breathing stayed with me. And then it appeared. I almost ran directly into it. It stepped out from behind a massive fir tree directly in my path. Materialized is almost the right word. Like it had been inside the tree, and simply chose to be outside it, and I had maybe 3 feet of warning before I would have collided with it, and I threw myself sideways, stumbling, nearly going down. I caught myself on a tree trunk and spun to face it, and I saw it clearly for the first time. There are things I struggle to describe even now. The basic dimensions I can give you. 7 feet, perhaps an inch or two more. Built massively wide through the chest and shoulders, long-limbed, the arms hanging lower than they should anatomically. The skin, or hide, or whatever covered it was dark, almost charcoal, with a texture that caught the flat afternoon light and didn't reflect it the way skin would. The face was long, wrong proportions in ways my brain kept trying to correct and failing. The eyes were large and set slightly too far apart, and they were fixed on me with an intensity of focus that removed any ambiguity about what was happening. It was looking at me the way a predator looks at prey. Not with anger. Not with aggression, exactly. With something quieter than that. Something patient. Something that had been waiting. It moved. Not toward me, not directly. It moved in the way a large animal moves when it wants to cut off an escape route, a lateral shift that placed it between me and the trail north. Fast. Too fast. The distance it covered in 2 seconds would have taken me 6. I reached for my bear spray, pulled it, triggered it. The orange cloud hit it full in the face. It paused, just for a second. Then it shook its head once, the way a person shakes water out of their eyes, and kept coming. The Glock was in my hand before I consciously decided to draw it. I don't remember making that decision. One moment my hand was empty, and the next the gun was up and I fired twice, center mass, because that is what years of range practice makes automatic. Both shots hit. I know they hit. I saw the impact. I heard the sound. It stopped, stood there, looked down at itself, then back at me, and then it moved. Faster than it had moved before. Not the measured, cut off the exit movement from a moment ago. Something else. Pure, committed, closing the distance speed that I had no chance of matching or preparing for. Its arm came up. I remember the motion. A sweep, not a punch, not a grab. A sweep, open-handed, low, across my left side. The way you'd clear something off a table without breaking stride. The impact spun me half around. I didn't feel pain immediately. I felt force. I felt myself stagger sideways and have to fight to keep my feet. My left hand went to my side instinctively, the way your hand goes to wherever you've been hurt before you fully process that you've been hurt. My hand came away dark. I ran. I don't have clear memory of the next several minutes. Adrenaline does that. Adrenaline and blood loss, I understand now, though I didn't have the presence of mind to understand it then. I ran north. I know that. I stayed on my feet longer than I had any right to. The pain arrived slowly, which I have since read is common with deep lacerations. The nervous system takes time to fully register the extent of the damage, and the body's shock response acts as a kind of analgesic in the short term. I ran through that window. I know it was behind me, not always close, not pressing, just present. A sound in the forest that stayed a consistent distance back regardless of how fast I moved. Not chasing, really. More like escorting, walking me somewhere. The trail appeared. The main trail. I hit it at a stumbling run and turned north and kept going. The pain was real now. It was very real. A deep, burning, rhythmic agony that spiked with every footfall and every breath. My left side felt hot and wrong. My shirt was stuck to my skin and not with sweat. Don't think about it. Keep running. The forest began to thin. The canopy opened up. The grade leveled. I recognized landmarks that split Boulder, that dry creek crossing from my morning hike in, the trailhead. I could see the parking area through the trees. My truck, the gray-green Ford Ranger sitting exactly where I'd left it, alone in the crushed gravel lot. I could make it. My legs were getting strange, heavy in a way that wasn't just exhaustion, each stride shorter than the one before. The ground tilting slightly in my vision in a way that I knew, on some clinical level, meant I was losing blood faster than my body could compensate. The truck was 100 yards away. Keep going. 50 yards. My left leg buckled. I caught myself. Kept moving. More of a controlled stumble than a run now. One foot in front of the other. Just that. Just keep that going. 30 yards. The parking lot gravel was under my boots. I was out of the forest. I could see my driver's side door. I was reaching for my keys in my pocket, and my fingers were clumsy and cold, and I couldn't feel them properly. 20 yards. My legs stopped. Not slowly, not gradually. They simply stopped holding me, and I went down hard on the gravel, knees first, and the impact sent a shock of pain up through my side that took my vision white for a full second. Get up. I couldn't get up. I got onto my hands. My left arm shook under my weight. I began to crawl, hand over hand, knees dragging through the gravel, toward the truck, toward the door, toward the handle that was right there. I could almost reach it. I was almost there. 20 feet. My arms gave out. I rolled onto my back. The gray sky above me, the tops of the firs swaying in a wind I couldn't feel down here. A raven circling, high up, just a black shape against the clouds. I looked over my shoulder, toward the tree line. It was there, standing at the edge of the forest, at the exact boundary where the trees ended and the gravel began. Just standing, watching me. Still unhurried, still patient. The same impossible stillness it had carried through every moment of the past 2 days. It looked at me lying 20 feet from my truck, and it smiled that wrong too-many-teeth expression that it seemed to have specifically learned for this purpose, and it shook its head. Slowly, once, side to side, almost like it was disappointed, almost like it had expected more from me. It began to walk toward me. No rush. Long, slow strides. The gravel didn't crunch under its feet the way it should have, like it weighed nothing, like it barely touched the ground at all. I looked at my truck. 20 feet. I tried to say something. My throat was dry, and the words came out barely above a whisper, rough and cracked, and not at all the voice I hear in my own head when I think of myself. But they came out. Looks like the hunt's over. The thing stopped a few feet away. It stood over me. I had to tilt my head back to see its face, and the gray sky was behind it, and it was looking down at me with those wrong eyes and that wrong smile, and the patience of something that has never once in its existence been in a hurry. My vision was going dark at the edges, closing in, the tunnel getting tighter. The last thing I saw was it crouching down beside me, watching, waiting, and then the dark closed all the way in, and there was nothing at all. Gifford Pinchot, National Forest Incident Report. Case number GPN202300912. Date of report, September 25th, 2023. Reporting officer, Ranger T. Holloway, District 4. Vehicle located, Dark Divide, Trailhead, Forest Service Road 25 at approximately 9:40 a.m. on September 25th. Engine was off. Driver's door was closed. No occupant present. Vehicle registered to Craig Allen Daniels, age 38, of Tacoma, Washington. Mr. Daniels had not been reported missing at time of discovery. Significant blood evidence located on parking area surface, beginning approximately 20 feet north of the vehicle and trailing toward the tree line. Pattern consistent with the subject who fell, then crawled toward the vehicle before losing consciousness or mobility. Subject not located at scene. Blood volume at primary deposit site significant enough to suggest serious injury. Multiple cameras, recording devices, and camping equipment recovered over subsequent 2 days from a ravine approximately 2 miles south of Trailhead. Equipment showed no significant damage. One SD card from recovered equipment contained approximately 40 minutes of usable footage. Footage forwarded to Regional Wildlife Management for review. Classification of footage pending further analysis. Nature of subject captured in footage has not been officially determined. Ground search conducted September 25th through September 27th. Canine units deployed. No body recovered. No signs of subject beyond original blood evidence at Trailhead. Search suspended September 27th due to incoming weather system. Case status open. Craig Allen Daniels listed as missing. Next of kin notified. This is the 16th incident filed for the Dark Divide drainage area in the past 22 months. 11 of 16 incidents involve subjects who reported being followed, paced, or otherwise tracked by an unidentified subject prior to their encounter. 4 of 16 involve physical evidence of injury. 2 prior cases remain open with no subject recovered. Recommend review of public access status for Eastern Dark Divide drainage. Request submitted. Pending review by Forest Service Administration. Case remains active and open. There's nothing I can tell you that Craig didn't already know. He knew these woods. He had the right gear. He had 12 years of experience and a methodical mind, and he took this seriously in a way that most people who go looking for these things never do. And none of it was enough. Because whatever is out there in the Dark Divide, whatever has been filling up those incident reports one by one, whatever has been watching from tree lines and mimicking voices and leading people deeper into terrain they can't navigate their way back out of, it isn't something you can out-prepare. It doesn't care how good your cameras are. It already knows where your cameras are. It doesn't care how fast you can run. It knows exactly how fast you can run because it's been watching you since before you knew it was watching. It isn't discovered. It decides when to be found. And if you ever find yourself in a forest, following a trail of your own things that you know you didn't put there, stop. Don't take the next step. Don't pick up the next piece. Turn around and walk out. Fast. And don't let curiosity or pride or 12 years of searching convince you that the obvious trail is anything other than what it is. A line with you at the end of it. The forest doesn't owe you an explanation, and it won't give you one. Stay out of the Dark Divide. If this story left you unsettled, you're not alone. Subscribe to Dark Horror Narrations and follow along as we continue to document what Craig left behind. New uploads every week. And remember, the next time you're out there and something feels wrong, trust that feeling. It might be the most important thing you ever do.